It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back to Hometown Commander, back for an episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I take my first pass at the commander in front of us on a budget on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing it. That's what we're back to do today. That deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out those links in the description. I'd appreciate it. But today we're continuing through our Avatar content, and today we're talking about Aang and Katara, a 6-mana Bant commander. It says whenever they enter or attack, we're going to make X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the number of tapped artifacts or creatures we could or creatures we control. So we of course want to bring Aang in either after we've attacked or used our creatures for abilities, so we can get some allies, and that the hope is every turn as we're attacking, we're making more of them. And this makes a lot of sense since a lot of the old allies care about allies entering the battlefield. This means that we can make sure we can take advantage of those abilities. We'll find ways to either blink Aang and Katara or copy it to get more ally tokens in. And then since we're going to have a wide board of tokens, right, we want to find a way to buff the team to get damage in during combat. But I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all our videos just a little bit earlier for just $1 a month, could start checking that out down below. Again, there's so many different allies to choose from. I think it's kind of cool to blend the old allies with the new ones. We have the old Gideon, who can either, on his +1, turn him into a 5/5 ally until end of turn. The 0 can put another ally on the token on the battlefield, or this -4 can give you an emblem, buffing all your creatures. Appa the Vigilant from the Scene box gives all your creatures flying, vigilance, and +1/+1 until end of turn. And whenever an ally comes in, Great Divide Guide lets us tap all of our allies for a mana of any color, allowing them to be tapped right for Aang and Katara's ability. Hada Freeblade is one of a few allies that grow every time another ally comes in. Hakoda can allow us to cast allies off the top of our library and then can be used to buff our creatures to give them indestructible as a sacrifice effect if need be. Halimar Excavator is going to have somebody mill the top X cards of their library, where X number of allies we control every time it or another ally comes in. This is a really nice ability we can hopefully use to help hurt our opponents that way. Hairbaz Druid can tap for mana, where the equal number of allies we control. Hero Gomafada is going to hand out indestructible to all of our allies every time another ally comes in. We have Katara the Fearless from the main set, doubling all of our allies' triggered abilities. And then we have Katara Water Tribe's Hope, which we can water bend to tap creatures to buff all of our creatures by making them base powered up as XX. A really key ability that hopefully we can use in conjunction with Aang and Katara to tap those ones that just came in to really buff our board. Lantern Scout can give out lifelink. C8 Lore Master can draw us cards for each allies we control. Suki makes an ally an attack. Tashura Walker is going to buff all of our creatures whenever an ally comes in. Talos Paladin is going to hand out lifelink and put a counter on itself whenever an ally comes in. So these are just examples of all these different abilities in the deck of the allies to either buff our board or give them some sort of benefit. But we also have ways to blink them if we want to. Cloud Shift, Ephemerate, Essence Flux. These are all single target ways to blink and Katara to get them back in to make more 1/1 ally tokens. We can do it on attack too, right? So it's not like we only need to blink them to make the tokens. But there may be worlds or turns where blinking them is the most efficient to do it. Conjurer's Closet and Teleportation Circle are going to allow us to do it on every end step. This is also nice because then if we tapped out to attack with all our creatures, well, we just blink Aang and Katara, it comes back in untapped, makes all those tokens, and then we've got stuff up to block. And then Airbender Ascension is going to collect quest counters whenever creatures come in, and very similar to the Closet and the Circle, if it has 4 or more quest counters at the beginning of our upkeep, we basically get to blink a creature. So here's ways to kind of do it every turn, whereas these are single target, spell ways to do it. But I think where the deck's probably going to shrine and hit its stride is buffing those creatures and making them into threats. Things like Banner of Kinship, when put down at the right time, can be a nice big buff for our board. Coming in, it's going to look at the number of allies you control, obviously because we're playing an ally deck, and put that many Fellowship counters on it, and then buff every creature we control for the rest of the game, right, for each Fellowship counter on it. Eldrazi Monument will give them flying and indestructible. We just have to sacrifice an ally or a creature at the start of every turn. Beastmaster Ascension gets quest counters on it whenever we attack, and then if it has 7 or more counters on it, it buffs them all by +5/+5. Broker's Ascendancy puts a counter on all of our creatures at the beginning of each end step. Radiant Destiny can give them vigilance as long as it's Sitting's Blessing. So a little bit of a non-bow with Aang and Katara, but I think it's still important if you have a wide enough board, you don't mind the vigilance because you want to be doing the combat thing anyway. And then Kathar's Crusade will hand out counters every time a creature comes in, really buffing our board and turning them into a real threat. Renewed Solidarity works here, giving all allies +1/+0. And then the start of our end step, for each token of the chosen type we made this turn, we make another one, which is a great ability, right? Kind of doubling up Aang and Katara's ability. Soka's Charge, handing all of our allies double strike and lifelink. And then Virtual Loyalty, putting a counter on them all and untapping. So this is kind of nice because then you can, tap an attack with Aang and Katara, right? Get all the tokens that way. But then Virtual Loyalty will untap them at the end of the turn, making them into blockers or whatever you need, for other abilities. We do have ways to tap them for mana in the deck, so that's another nice thing. You'd then be able to hold up them, for mana as well. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again: no deck's ever complete. This is my first shot at Aang and Katara, and I think going into testing, the one thing I probably didn't pursue as much as I should have is something like Airbend, especially since it will allow you to have more allies. Things like Aang and Appa are going to do a great job at airbending other allies to replay and get ally tokens that way. I think it's something I really thought about, uh, but I ended up just cutting them due to cost. I was trying to stay within a nice budget, but I think they're the kind of cards that will help you with the game plan you want to make happen. And then Kindred Discovery, drawing cards whenever our allies come in or attack, is a nice ability and can really help us churn through our library. Let's do what we love to do on the channel the most and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find Magical Christmas Land. It's not just to show off all our best plays, but it's to take some test hands and see kind of how we would set things on up. Here I've got a 3-laner with a Soaring and a Nature's Lore. We see Katara and then Elspeth, a way to double up the number of tokens we make on the top end, which is pretty nice. I just think here we go, probably Soaring into the Nature's Lore. We have a tri-land, so I'd probably go get it. So here we have the mana for Katara, right? But unfortunately, we're not going to get. We'd only get one if we tossed it in right now. So I think I kind of like Skull Clamp plus Elspeth here. Tick up Elspeth for the soldiers. Again, not allies, so not going to matter. But at least now you have something protecting Elspeth until your next turn here. So now if I tap the Soul Ring and play Aang, I'm only making one ally, which would get doubled to 2. Now, if I go to combat and attack first, right, then I could potentially make more. Because remember, Aang doesn't, I just realized, doesn't care about allies. It just cares about creatures. I don't know why I didn't put that together in my head. So this might actually make more sense. You could, plus one, or sorry, you could plus one Elspeth to make a couple more soldiers. And then, just attack with these two. That way they're tapped. And then get a couple more because it'd be just one at the moment. So it'd be just 2 at the moment, right? One doubled, but you could potentially get it to be 4 or 6, right? Depending on if the soldiers live. I mean, you could guarantee it with the 0, giving them a counter and flying. But I think that's what I'd probably do just to set up also some more value for next turn. I'll probably just make the soldiers and then maybe 1 or 2 of them die, but the important point is you have at least one. Maybe you end up sneaking out, cut more allies for the second one. And then going into this turn, I love the idea of Katara doubling up that trigger to go to. You have United Front, which can really buff them. Waterbender Ascension will help us start drawing some cards if we want to do that. There's a lot of different ways we can do it. The other nice thing with Elspeth here is you could just 0, put a counter on all of them, and give them flying, meaning Katara will attack here with 8 of them, making 16 more allies. So we're gonna have a lot, going for us. I think I like the Waterbender Ascension. Gonna help us draw some cards. And then I think I just like the Katara. Now, we could clamp one of these before we attack if we want to, just to draw a couple extra cards. I don't hate the idea of that, just to fill the hand. But, well, I was going to say, but if you think about it, we're going to end up drawing here. So we would put a counter on everything, give them flying. We're going to basically hit with 8 creatures. So the first 4 aren't going to draw off the Ascension. But the last 4 will draw us cards. And I don't believe it's a May. So we probably shouldn't have played probably shouldn't have clamped. Probably should have saved the mana, but it looks like it would have been wasted anyway. There's not really anything we can play, but we see things like Apple, which would be great for next turn, giving them that huge buff. Because remember, it happens every time an ally came in. So we had 8 tap creatures and a tapped soaring. So I believe that would be 9 allies, which would be what, 18. So here you go. And if somebody can't wipe the board here, we're just in great shape. Oh, it goes off twice. Sorry, because of Katara. So it's a massive amount of allies, and that's just game with Elspeth next turn if nobody can wipe the board, right? So that goes to show you with I can't believe I did. I just assumed it was tapped allies. I can't believe it's tapped creatures. I feel like I probably would have put a few more token producers in here, but hey, that's something to think about in the back of your mind as you get into testing and you don't make boneheaded moves like that, right? You realize that, and then you can add in more token generators. Four lander here with Gideon to help make some tokens, United Front, and then that teleportation circle for the bling. We're gonna work our way up, and we see Cryptolith Right. Cryptolith Right is great, allows our creatures to tap for mana. This is absolutely huge because then every token we're making is becoming another creature we could tap for mana, basically allowing us to cast more things. So here we could definitely tap 3, 4, 5, 6 and play Katara, and she would come in and get us 2 allies, or we could go ahead and +1 Gideon to make him into a creature and tap him for mana and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and actually this would net us, you know, 3 allies. So there's definitely a way of how you want to do this. I think 3 allies make the most sense because then you get the most bang for your buck next turn. Again, Suki's buffing them up a little bit. And then as we come to our next turn, Kathar's Crusade is probably one of the better things we could draw. Take Gideon up to make him a creature, full swing. Katara's going to see 7 tapped creatures, making 7 allies, and then there's 7 counters and everything off of Kathar's Crusade. So you can see Kathar's Crusade is one of the top end examples of a way just to really buff our board. Unless somebody has a big, it is only 7 attackers, so that isn't enough to kill the whole table, but it's enough to put a lot of really good damage down. And I think at the end of the day, it'll probably really hurt our opponents to deal with that. And if I would probably try to take out at least one opponent, focus on one, try to hit a second one if you can, and then hopefully we can just hold the board up. We didn't really see any protection that game, and hopefully you can hold the board up to survive. Playtest 3 here, 3 lander with a Patrick banner, but you also see that Harabaz Druid, tapping for each ally you control. So I like this. We've got multiple sources of mana. Meant to be that there. Here for the Patrick banner, and then you could go 2 into the Felwar Stone there if you want to, just to get it out. Here we do have 6 mana, and if we used all of it, we would end up with 3 allies, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's 3 tap creatures or artifacts. So that's not bad, right? This next turn, I love the idea of something like the White Lotus Tile could get us a bunch of value. This now taps for 5 mana of any one color. I like the idea of something like this growing itself. You could also go for something like Caretaker's Talent, since you're going to end up making a token this turn. Here's the other 2. Maybe 3, 4 for Panharmonicon. Got a couple of mana left. I almost love this idea of something like Broker said, see, just to grow the board. But now you're going to automatically blink Katara at the end of the turn, which is just going to guarantee more tokens. The 4 of these would attack. All of them are tapped, and both of these are tapped. So that's 7 allies, right? Draw off the Caretaker's Talent. And now, being your end step, we're going to have oh, sorry. I looked at Panharmonicon and I saw Contra's Closet. Oh well. My bad. But anyway, now you're getting counters on everything off the Broker's Ascendancy. Panharmonicon would have tried to double Caretaker's Talent, but of course can't because it's a once per turn ability. Feels pretty good on the Halimar. So the Halimar comes in 3, 6, 9, 10, 14 allies. So you'd mill, 2 players for 14. Or 2 targets for 14. Put the Taliesin. Basically give the whole board lifelink just to help us gain some life back. You can get the tile in if you wanted to. So this is tapping for what, like 13 blue. So you could use a bunch of it there on one of the whites. You could put the White Lotus tile in. My thought was you could always try to get this ticked up to buff them since they all have lifelink this turn. But again, you go to attack. Sorry, the that would double trigger, and Halimar Excavator would double trigger, but now you attack with all of them and you're making what, 10, 13 ally tokens. But again, all of them are gonna mill for that many, and that should just mill our opponents out, seeing all of them come in. Well, that's 20. So if I make 13 allies, they all come in and trigger twice. And the number of allies I have is what? Like 26? Because they're all going to see each other as entering the battlefield when they enter. That's probably enough. 26 times, even if it was just times 13, it's 4 per person to mill their library. So yeah, I mean that's a mill out right there. We just kind of hit that nice scenario, and we have this flawless maneuver to back up this board if somebody tried to wipe it. That's the kind of nice part here, is we actually saw it, and you're still attacking. Right. The nice part about this is you're still attacking. You still drew off the Caretaker's talent, and you're still actually putting these into combat. It's just now you get that beautiful benefit of, not only growing your paladin to be really huge, but now you're getting all that mill to back it up. And that's why I think effects like Halimar Excavator are so important in a deck like this, where we're making all these ally tokens so that we can really benefit from all the ally tokens coming in. Let's go one more playtest here. 3-lander with Great Divide Guide. So no blue, but we have the Great Divide Guide to help us out. There's the Lore Master, which can help us draw, Panharmonicon, and then the Cleric, which gains us life. So the Free Blade comes in, gets a counter. Here I'll play the Great Divide Guide, get a counter, right? So now the nice part is they're both tapping for mana. It's either Elspeth or the Lore Master is my thought. Lore Master presents some nice draw next turn, is my thought, and an easy way to tap itself, right? So now here's 6 mana for Aang. Aang and Katara. I almost makes you wonder if you tap the Lore Master just to draw to see if we get into anything that changes our mind. So just 6 mana left up. I could see Cleric plus Panharmonicon and just, again, setting up for next turn, trying to go big. But at the same time, I don't mind, Aang will come out and would only just come out and get me 3. So maybe you go Panharmonicon, then Dondu Cleric, 2 counters there, gain 4 life twice. And then as we come to this turn, now you can potentially set up the big turn for Aang and Katara. 6, 9 mana. Tap them all down for mana. You could tap the draw first just to see what you get. Aang making what? Potentially up to 4. Bunch of counters. Bunch of life gained. I think we had 2 mana left. I mean, you could go United Front and just put a counter on all of them, or we could not tap one of the lands and, hold up for something like Cloud Shift or Essence Flux, right? Just to protect our board a little bit. I think we just pitch a couple lands. That my thought there is then you just protect your board by being able to blink Appa for a bunch more creatures. But now, I mean, Katara seems like a really great choice. Buffs up here, you gain a life, you attack with all of these. That's 9, so you're going to gain 9 allies. Sorry, she makes one when she comes in. So you're going to make 9 allies, and then you could tap all the 10 of them into Waterbend to make them all 10/10s, just to deal a bunch of damage, right? So we're kind of looking pretty good there. And then you could even follow Katara up with a, United Front if you want to, but 5 there. Yeah, it's the only downside of those tokens not having haste, right? If we could get the Elspeth in for the flying. If I do this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I could get Aang in, which would give them flying. You just have less attacker. So I think Aang's probably your, or sorry, Appa's probably your play next turn, right? To come in and give them the flying that you could then, you know, pair up with the Katara for some big damage. But I'd love to know, what do you think of Aang and Katara down the cab section below? I think I left a little bit of the probably go wide token on the field because I honestly I just read ally in my mind. I didn't read token. But again, or creatures. But again, when she's making all these allies that do things whenever allies come in makes so much sense because you're going to be able to proc them, hopefully, so many times each combat. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I will catch you all next.